February 24th, 2014. If you were a Bitcoin investor, this date is your 9/11. It was the day the ground fell out from under the world's most dominant cryptocurrency exchange. Mt. Gox. Panicked traders desperately refreshed their screens, only to stare at a blank page. A single, desperate question exploded across every online forum. Where is our money? 850,000 Bitcoins. At the time, nearly $500 million were simply gone. This was not just a market crash. This was the moment an entire digital revolution almost died. Today, we're peeling back the layers on this legendary failure, asking how could one single attack nearly kill Bitcoin, and who was the elusive mastermind behind one of the biggest cyber heists in history. Stay tuned. This is the ultimate cybercrime documentary on the downfall of the king of Bitcoin. In the early 2010 seconds, Bitcoin was still a curiosity, a niche for geeks and cypherpunks, and if you wanted to trade it, you went to one place: Mt. Gox. The name itself is a historical accident, a Frankenstein of the internet. It was originally a trading post for Magic the Gathering cards. The Magic the Gathering online exchange. In 2011, the coder behind it handed the platform to a young, flamboyant French programmer named Marc Karpelès. Marc was an unlikely king. He went by the handle Magical Tux, an unapologetic Uber geek who reportedly loved to be called the king of Bitcoin. Under Karpelès' watch, Mt. Gox grew into the beating heart of the Bitcoin economy, peaking at roughly 70% of all BTC transactions worldwide. He was effectively setting the global price. On paper, Marc was a legend, sitting on a digital goldmine, but the throne was ultimately built on sand. By 2013, the trading volume was crushing Mt. Gox's antiquated system. The first red flags weren't just delays, they were existential threats. The first major hack hit in June 2011, and while Karpelès scrambled, or perhaps took the weekend off as the legendary story goes, the hackers didn't just crash the site. Crucially, they planted a ticking time bomb. They stole the keys to Mt. Gox's Bitcoin vault, unbeknownst to everyone. Starting in late 2011, coins began to vanish from the exchange's hot wallets, the online storage connected to the internet. This wasn't a sudden break-in, it was a slow, subtle bleed. So, how do you lose $500 million without a single alarm bell? The answer is pure internal chaos and truly shocking negligence. Mt. Gox's development team lacked basic version control for their code and had no robust testing environment whatsoever. This is a critical cybersecurity protocol failure for any financial institution. The software was so messy. Any small change required Marc Karpelès' personal sign-off, delaying critical security fixes for weeks. This catastrophic negligence meant the thieves could siphon coins out, and the company books wouldn't catch it. The theft was happening in plain sight, hidden by the fog of their own incompetence. Mt. Gox was essentially running on a fractional reserve, which is a classic financial fraud mechanic. New deposits were being used to fulfill old withdrawals, running a crypto shell game that only a few top insiders may have suspected. The house of cards began to wobble visibly in 2013. Users complained of months-long withdrawal delays. Then, U.S. authorities seized $5 million from Mt. Gox's bank accounts for regulatory non-compliance. The outside pressure was building relentlessly. But while the hull was taking on water, what was the captain doing? Marc Karpelès was pouring $1 million and countless hours into a side project, a Bitcoin cafe in Tokyo. He was busy tinkering with a custom point-of-sale system. While customer support tickets went unanswered and the exchange's core infrastructure remained dangerously fragile, it was like ignoring a leaky hull to redecorate the lounge. This is the definition of mismanagement, leading to catastrophic failure. By early 2014, the stage was set for the final act. On February 7th, Mt. Gox froze all withdrawals. Their excuse was a technical weakness called transaction malleability, a known Bitcoin bug that other exchanges had already fixed. To most experts, it smelled purely like grasping at straws. The price on Mt. Gox plummeted to $100, while the rest of the market held above $500. This massive divergence was a digital bank run in motion, as protesters begged for answers outside the Tokyo headquarters. Karpeles went silent. Then, on February 24, 2014, the website went dark. Just a blank page. The end had finally arrived, almost immediately. A leaked internal document revealed the awful truth: 744,000 bitcoins were missing. Mt. Gox was utterly insolvent. A few days later, Mark Karpeles finally admitted the loss: 850,000 BTC, worth $450 million at the time, were gone. He took his famous deep bow of apology, blaming hackers. But the search for the real villain was just beginning. Was Karpeles a master thief or a clueless techie in way over his head? For years, the case hung over the crypto community, fueling every internet mystery and conspiracy theory imaginable. Karpeles was arrested in 2015, not for the hack, but for fraud, for altering database records to cover the losses. He was a liar. Yes, but courts found no evidence that he stole the coins. The hunt then moved to the blockchain. Sleuths tracked the stolen Mt. Gox coins being laundered through an obscure Russian exchange known as BTC-e. This is a classic method used in many dark web scams and international phishing attacks, where funds are tumbled through services to obscure their origin. The first big break came in 2017 with the arrest of Russian national Alexander Vinnik, the operator of BTC-e. Vinnik was accused of laundering billions in stolen Bitcoin, but Vinnik was likely just the launderer, not the thief. Finally, in June 2023, 9 years later, U.S. investigators indicted two Russian nationals, Alexei Beluchenko and Alexander Werner. They alleged these two men were the hackers who stole 647,000 bitcoins from the exchange. They were likely hiding in Russia, beyond the reach of international law. But the mystery was solved. The failure of Mt. Gox was a massive security breach and an act of external cybercrime, amplified 1,000 times by its internal chaos. The ghost of Mt. Gox still haunts crypto, teaching us a harsh lesson about trust. It forced the world to finally focus on robust cybersecurity protocols. Here's what you need to take away from this cautionary tale to protect your digital assets. First, not your keys, not your coins. This is the mantra born directly from Mt. Gox. Never trust a centralized exchange with all your funds. The gold standard for security is cold storage, a hardware wallet that keeps your private keys completely offline. Treat exchanges like a bank teller, a temporary place to trade, not a permanent vault for your life savings. Second, fight phishing and imposters. Before any major transaction, use a separate, verified channel to confirm details. Many major phishing attacks are successful because they exploit urgency and trust. Always check the URL for subtle misspellings, as this is a key tactic in creating fake websites to steal your credentials. Never click links or download attachments from unsolicited emails, especially if they mention crypto transfers or account issues. Third, enable multi-factor authentication, or MFA. You need more than just a password. Use a strong authenticator app, like Google Authenticator, for your email, your bank, and especially your exchanges. If your password is stolen in a breach, 2FA is your absolute last line of defense. Finally, recognize red flags. If an exchange repeatedly limits or freezes withdrawals, citing technical issues or transaction malleability, get your money out immediately. That's the classic sign of insolvency. A lesson learned bitterly in 2014. The Mt. Gox hack was the Titanic of crypto exchanges. It cost $500 million. But the price of the lesson it taught was immeasurable. A decentralized currency is only as strong as the centralized places we use to trade it. Bitcoin survived this massive act of cybercrime, but the threat never truly goes away. Don't let your digital life become a dark web headline. Be smart, be skeptical, and secure your coins. This has been the Digital Sleuth. Stay vigilant, and I'll see you in the next investigation.